Hey guys, before I get started on this episode, the Golden State with Mates Patreon has a new lower price, $2.99 and $4.99 per month memberships, where you can access up to 5 bonus podcast episodes every week, a daily Warriors newsletter, and get yourself in the draw to win monthly giveaways. I'll leave a link in the description. It would be great if you could go and check it out. Coming up on this episode, the disconnect between the Warrior front office and the coaching staff extends well beyond recent lottery picks. I'll take a look at a specific element the Warriors distinctively rely upon and a huge problem that was again evident in Wednesday night's loss to the Boston Celtics. Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates podcast. The Warriors suffered a 120-99 defeat to the Boston Celtics at TD Garden on Wednesday night. Their 6th loss in the last 7 games, and one that puts them down to the 10th seed in the Western Conference standings after the Portland Trail Blazers also recorded a victory over the Indiana Pacers. Expected? Absolutely. Boston, one of the best teams in the league right now, second in the Eastern Conference. Things don't get any easier for the Warriors. Well, maybe they actually do slightly, because they play Detroit tomorrow, and the Pistons will be on the second night of a back-to-back, and they will be without Cade Cunningham, who has a collapsed lung. Good luck to him. That sounds not ideal. And obviously Detroit, looking to make a run deep in the playoffs, will want their superstar guard back sooner rather than later. So good luck to Cade Cunningham, but he will obviously be out against the Warriors tomorrow. Just watching yesterday's game, right, and again, expected result, but nonetheless disappointing. And after a game against the Wizards where the Warriors really capitalized on the complete lack of interior defense that Washington provided, of course, a team that had given up 83 points to Bam Adebayo just last week. And the Warriors really capitalized on that. They took a season-low 32 three-point attempts. They focused on getting inside. We saw it with De'Anthony Melton, first and foremost, who had 27 points, 12 of 17 shooting, just repeatedly getting to the rim and finishing. And then we saw it with Kristaps Porzingis later in the game, had 12 fourth-quarter points as part of his first 30-point outing against for the Warriors. Sorry, 6 of 6, I think, from the free throw line in the fourth quarter, 13 of 14 overall. So attacking the basket again, getting to the free throw line. It was a nice thing to see, I suppose, from a fan's perspective, that the Warriors weren't so reliant on the three ball. But generally, this team, and it's not just the case this season, it's obviously when you've got Steph Curry, you are very three-point shooting reliant. And I feel like the disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff can again be laid out by some of the three-point shooting numbers that we've seen this season. Now, again, granted, I understand, I want to preface by saying, well, if you're going to be without Steph Curry for 20-plus games, and yes, that's a problem. If you're going to be without Jimmy Butler, who himself is not a great three-point shooter, although the percentage before he got injured was actually okay, around 37, 38%. But I understand, like, Jimmy's creation ability sets up so many more open three-point attempts for guys that may otherwise be semi-contested at this point, because they don't have the star players who can attack the rim and take the focus of the defense and collapse the defense and stuff like that. So I understand it. But I feel like it's been the case for a while where the Warriors are really three-point reliant, and yet they don't really have the shooters, right? So they don't really have the guys you want taking those three-point attempts. And I feel like that's, again, the case this season. We can talk about the disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff, and when it comes to the former lottery picks in James Wiseman and Jonathan Kuminga, and the fact that, Steve Kerr wanted to take Franz Wagner and Joe Lacob wanted Kuminga, and Kuminga was probably on the team for too long. Well, I wouldn't say probably was on the team for too long. Steve Kerr wouldn't play him, blah, 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 all this stuff. I'm not going to get into that. But again, if we're looking at the roster and you're trying to attribute some blame here as to why the Warriors find themselves in this position. Now, the number one reason, I have no doubt, is injuries, right? I actually think this team could be really interesting and actually be quite good if not for all the injuries. If this was a team that had Steph Curry, De'Anthony Melton, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Kristaps Porzingis, maybe Moody starting at the 2, Steph, Moody, Jimmy, Draymond, Porzingis, and then, Pods and Gee and D'Anthony Melton and now Horford coming off the bench. Like, it's actually, like, it's a fine team. Now, it's not flawless. It's not the best team in the league, but you know what? It could do some damage in the playoffs. It could go on a deep playoff run, right? There's not too many flawless teams out there in the league, right? Like even Detroit, who I've just mentioned, like they are first in the Eastern Conference, but now I'm going to be really fascinated to see how they go without Cade, because the lack of a second star and a second offensive creator has always been the concern there. So the injuries are undoubtedly the biggest reason why the Warriors find themselves in this position, right? And maybe it's a good thing. Maybe the Warriors finish 10th, they get eliminated in the play-in straight away, and then they get some BS luck in the lottery and somehow fall into a top 4 pick, and the fortunes of this franchise could actually really change as a result of that. That would be fantastic, right? So maybe it's a good thing. But it's still disappointing in the interim, without a doubt. Like, you want to be able to go into Boston yesterday and you want to have some kind of chance at victory. And I just feel like the Warriors never really had a chance because of the talent differential. Again, injuries are the main thing. But there is a clear, distinct problem here in terms of the 3-point shooting reliance and kind of what Mike Dunleavy Jr. and the front office have put together in terms of the roster, right? So you've either got to say, well, Steve Kerr's got to play a different style, a different system that actually allows for some interior scoring and doesn't rely on the 3-point shooting as much, or Mike Dunleavy Jr. and the front office have to put together a roster that has a little bit more consistent 3-point shooting than what we've seen. I thought yesterday the Warriors, they shoot 10 of 43 from 3-point range, and it's just tough to watch. Honestly, tough to watch, particularly after I said, again, against the Wizards 2 days earlier, again, the quality of opponent is drastically different. I understand that. But they shoot only 9 of 32 against the Wizards, but at least they only took 32 attempts. They actually looked at the basket on the interior. I thought yesterday they did a disappointing job of posting up Kristaps Porzingis closer to the basket. Like, I'm just not sure. Like, we've seen it a little bit, and then yesterday I just didn't see enough of it where it was like, all right, let's get Porzingis in the post, not like beyond the free throw line, not just like there were a couple of times, I think he made a deep 2 at one point where he's like just shot over, maybe it was like Sam Hauser or something. I can't quite remember. It was Shine, and I can't remember who it was, but like a forward type just shot over him and scored. And I was like, okay, well, you got 2 points out of it, but that's a deep 2. It's not overly efficient. Can we get him posting up like, closer to the basket, which will, one, make it easier for him to score, and two, will probably dictate the Celtics into double teaming a little bit more. If we go back, remember that first game that KP played in his debut game for the Warriors against the Celtics, and they actually posted him up a lot and drew double teams quite regularly from the Boston defense. Now, again, they're probably they're doing that, and they're double teaming because obviously they're happy to leave some of these shooters open. I understand that, but I feel like we didn't see that yesterday. Like, if you're going to take a bunch of threes, at least make them like good shot quality threes. And Steve Kerr like said in the post game, I didn't really agree with him a whole lot, like necessarily that, we just got good looks, the ball didn't go in the basket. Now, that is the case sometimes, but I just feel the Warriors didn't play like the in-out game that, Fitz and Kalena will always go on about in the broadcast, where it's like, you play inside, you drive, you have a post-up opportunity, something like that, and your 3-point attempt eventually comes from creating the space and the ball movement and stuff like that. So I thought they did a really poor job of that yesterday. There just wasn't enough drive and kicking. There wasn't enough, all right, let's post Porzingis up only 7-8 feet from the basket and let him go to work. And if they send a double team, then he plays out of that. He's like a reasonable passer. Just not enough for my liking. And then, so if you look at the 3-point shooting numbers, they're pretty horrific. Like, they really are. So this is a team that shoots nearly 3 3-point attempts more per game than any other team in the league. They're like over 45, and then I think Charlotte a second, or at like 42.6 or something. So it's like nearly 3 3-point attempts more than any other team. So you are heavily reliant on 3-point shooting. and yet you rank 18th in percentage on the season. And again, like I understand, like Steph's out, and that hurts your percentage. Like I understand that, but even Steph, like only at 39% this season, so it's not like he's at some remarkable percentage. And then if you look at some of the individual numbers here, so there are 145 players in the league who are shooting at least 38% from three this season. The Warriors have 5 of them, which in fairness, that's about average. You'd think, oh, well, there's 30 teams in the league. If 30 teams have 5 players shooting above 38% from three, that's 150 players. Oh, okay. Yep, that fits in. But look at the 5 players Golden State have who are shooting over 38% from three. It's Steph and Moody, good shooters. It's Seth Curry, who's played 4 games all season. And then it's a pair of two-way contracted guys in LJ Cryer and Nate Williams. So it's like the wrong guys are shooting beyond 38% from three. Okay. You want some of these other guys who are key rotation pieces for you to be more consistent. You look at guys like Pods and Gee and basically everyone else down the roster. Like genuinely everyone else down the roster can be capable 3-point shooters, but are not anywhere near consistent enough. Like, and I think I look at maybe Pods specifically. Is like Pods is like 36, 37% this season. That's like league average. Like that's okay. That's an okay number. But it's a feast or famine nature, which means like you don't know what you're going to get on a nightly basis. In this like last 19 games that Steph's missed and Pods has taken a bigger role, obviously. He's had 4 games of at least 22 points, a couple of 25, 26-point games, showcase what he can really do, right? And been good at times. And then he also has 7 games of 11 points or less, including in the last 2 against the Wizards and the Celtics, where he shoots 1 of 7 from 3-point range yesterday. And it's like some of these shots aren't even close. There's like an air ball, basically an air ball every game. Like defenses aren't really closing out to his 3-ball in a way. It's like he's the kind of shooter where it's like, all right, you're going to have to make 2 or 3 before I really close out to you. Because if you make 2 or 3, then I'm like, okay, you're feeling it tonight. This is one of your good shooting games. Now I'll close out to you. Otherwise, like, he's a guy you want to leave open. The Warriors have so many of those guys. Okay? GP2. GP2 is playing bloody well at the moment. Like, credit to him. He's playing for a contract and he's playing damn well. It's probably the most in-form Warrior player potentially, maybe outside of like Gee. But like GP2 is really making an impact off the bench. And I always kind of thought he was a Steph merchant, like just played well next to Steph Curry. No, like credit to him. He's playing well at the moment. Another team high, 14 points yesterday. I mean, that's a problem when you have your leading scorers in a game are Pat Spencer and Gary Payton II, both coming off the bench. Problematic, but anyway, we move on. GP2's been really good. Guess what? Teams still don't guard him from 3-point range. Just 29.8% on the season. Okay, not ideal, obviously. Draymond, like his form and his production, less of a talking point, I suppose, in recent games probably, but still, you look at that game yesterday and you think to yourself, like, how different would this offense look if you had another offensive threat out there who was actually a shooter defenses would close out on? Because Draymond takes 7 3-point attempts yesterday and makes 3. You know what? That's okay. 3 of 7's fine. But like they are asking you, they are daring you to shoot these shots. They're not closing out to you. These are wide open jumpers. Okay. So how different would the offense look without Draymond Green on the floor? We've seen at times it looks so much better when you can put a bunch of shooters out there. Or if a team like the Celtics, who don't really have a 3-point shooting liability, and then like the guy they do have that doesn't shoot in Neemias Queta is 7 foot tall, big, strong, and athletic, and he's a real presence on both sides of the floor in the paint. Like, basketball's pretty simple in 2026, right? You need a lot of shooting on the floor. If you do not have that, then it becomes really problematic, and it actually leans into more reliance on 3-point shooting because defenses will say, well, we know you've got some inconsistent 3-point shooters. We're just going to collapse into the paint, right? And we're going to dare Draymond Green to take 7 jump shots from deep. We're going to dare Gary Payton II to beat us from 3-point range. So the reliance on the 3-ball actually stems largely, somewhat, especially without Steph on the floor, because teams are just letting you fire away from deep as much as you want, and the Warriors fall into the trap of it. Again, because they don't have the consistent three-point shooting threats. Porzingis, 29% from distance. Again, a guy that teams will close out to you, like that's his 29% is better than Draymond's 33.1%. Like he's a more dangerous shooter. That will go up, I hope, you would think, in time. Melton at 29.4%. I always just thought like he started struggling shooting the ball when he came back in early December. I always thought that was going to rise to like at least mid-30s. Never has. Still under 30% for the season. Not ideal. Goes, 1 of 6 yesterday or something. Him and Pods were like 2 of 13 combined. They were like 3 of 17 from the floor combined. They're role players. They are role players at the end of the day. And that is the problem here is like you would hope that without Steph and without Jimmy and a lot of time here without Porzingis, I suppose, that some of these guys, particularly Pods and Melton and stuff like that, would step up and be really consistent, I suppose, throughout this stretch. And what they've shown is that they can be high-level role players, right? But role players, the difference that often separates role players and star players is that star players, you can rock up every night and you know what they're going to give you, right? You know what they are going to give you on a consistent basis because there's a flaw there. There's a flaw there that says, I'm going to give you 20 points every night, okay, regardless really of what happens. As opposed to D'Anthony, Melton, Brandon, Podziemski, these types who can, like, Pods has had a couple of 25-point games. Melton did go for 27 on Monday in Washington. But then they have other games where they're single digits and they're 1 of 7 from three-point range. That's a role player for you, okay? And again, if Steph and Jimmy were available, I do think this team would be dangerous, okay? But it wouldn't change the fact that if we got to a big playoff setting, teams would collapse on Steph and Jimmy and just focus on them and say, all right, we're going to live with Brandon Podziemski three-point jumpers. We're going to live with D'Anthony Melton three-point jumpers, Draymond Green, Gary Payton II. Okay, so the front office has to have a look at this in the offseason and say, okay, there's 2 ways we can go here. We either need to get more three-point shooting and more consistent three-point shooting, and particularly like from the front court spots. Now, maybe you could say, all right, well, there's enough with Horford and Porzingis, but again, like the availability issues of those guys, like even a guy just like having a Sam Hauser on this team that Boston have, okay, who's like a real knockdown 6'7", 6'8" guy, okay, who has the size to compete on defense. Because I feel like the last thing fans want is more guards that Steve's just going to throw out there that might provide you some, like, even if Seth Curry was available for more than 4 games this season, gave you some of that three-point shooting, which would be important. But at the same time, it's like, well, he's just another guard to plug into the rotation that's going to be a bit of a problem defensively. So it's like, can you go and get a 6'7", 6'8" guy? Can you go and get what Otto Porter Jr. was for you in the championship year, which is, again, a 6'8" guy, players that's like stretch 4, can defend a little bit because of his size, can rebound a little bit because of his size, but can really shoot the crap out of the ball as well and shoot 40% from 3 or high 30s from 3. Okay, Moody is like that to a degree, and I think the Warriors are really missing Moses Moody right now. Okay, he has obviously had a very inconsistent role throughout his first 4 years with the Warriors, but has become a bona fide starter for them now for the majority of the past 12 months, going back to the Jimmy Butler trade, I suppose last year. Last year. So I feel like the Warriors are really missing Moses now because he's become that kind of consistent guy, 40% three-point shooter. Okay. And so that's, you put that on top of obviously no Steph, Horford being out at the moment, Jimmy, who can create three-point looks for you. Again, some of these three-point looks are like Draymond in the corner. All right, good luck. We're praying this one goes in. Gary Payton II from the corner. We're praying, hoping this one goes in without actually feeling trust and faith and knowledge that, hey, this guy's open. It's probably going to go in. Okay. So I don't know. You either do that and you go out and you prioritize shooting even more, which in fairness, they did a little bit last offseason with getting Al Horford in and with getting Seth Curry in. I think Horford was a big piece in terms of having that stretch 5. Even a guy like Quentin Post this season, it's like, man, like, again, teams are going to be willing to leave him open. He's like 33.5% on the season. Not great. Will Richard. I like Will Richard. Guess what? He's a 32.8 three-point shooter this season. Like a lot of these role players, like 3-point shooting is such a swing factor in this league for whether you make it or not. And it's like, well, Quinton Post, if you're going to shoot 33.5% moving forward, you ain't going to be in the league for very long. Will Richard, you're a nice story. You're under contract for another 3 years. You're going to be around for a while. But like, if we're looking back in a decade's time, did Will Richard really make it in the league? Well, you're not going to if you're 32.8%. D'Anthony Melton, do you really want 15 plus, 12 to 15 plus $1 million a year in free agency? You might not get that after shooting less than 30% on the season. Okay, so you either load up on more consistent 3-point shooting and particularly trying to get maybe another Moody type, another like 6'6", 6'7" guy who can really shoot it, who gives you still some size integrity rather than having to play a bunch of guards. Or you actually go out and change your game and go and get some interior threats, right? You say, Draymond, it's been great, but we're moving past you because you're not any kind of offensive threat. You don't have to have 5 shooters on the floor, but you probably have to have 4, and the 5th needs to give you some kind of interior. Like, I think Jimmy, like, you should be trying to surround Jimmy when he comes back with 4 shooters, but that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. I don't love the fit, but I think from just a star power perspective and the fact you're going into next season with Steph Curry, 38 years old, and Jimmy Butler obviously coming off a torn ACL and probably likely to miss the middle of next season. So I think there's some big concerns between a Jimmy Butler and a Giannis in the front court. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Guess what? It's Giannis. If you can go and get Giannis in the offseason, you still do it and you work it out when Jimmy comes back. And obviously in the meantime, the pairing between Giannis and Steph should be absolutely extraordinary and amazing and so fun to watch. Okay, albeit Giannis has got his own availability issues as well. If you can go and get another star player, if you can go and get Kawhi Leonard, then yes, okay, again, the health and the injury stuff is concerning, but you try and give yourself a little bit more leeway because suddenly now you've got 3 stars. Yes, they're all injury prone and older, but now you've got 3 stars. I just feel like the Warriors have to change something in terms of either the front office acknowledging, okay, Steve Kerr, if he's still the coach of this team, the way he coaches, you are going to put up 45 3-point attempts per game. Let's make sure we've got the guys that can actually knock them down. Okay, guys that defenses are going to respect. And then guess what? Those 45 3-point attempts might actually go down to something like 40, right? Because now you're actually getting looks on the interior because defenses are closing out the shooters. So the offensive issues here, like Steph uplifts and protects so much of the issues I think that this offense has and just the personnel on this roster. Like he just basically sweeps it under the rug because he's so great that, again, in the last 20 games or so without him, and of course the Warriors are going to struggle without Steph and Jimmy. Like we understand that. But like watching a game like yesterday go 10 of 43 from 3-point range, and that's like, it's a pretty common occurrence where the Warriors just can't hit anything from deep. Guess what? Because on the season, most of their guys are like 29 to 35% 3-point shooters, like poor 3-point shooters, many of which, again, like Draymond, GP2, Will Richard, Quinton Post, like many of which defenses are just going to like, cool, go for it. Maybe you'll have a hot night. And guess what? They are capable of hot nights, right? They even without Steph and Jimmy, they've proven capable of beating Denver, beating Houston, beating some decent teams. Again, because some of these role players are capable on their night. It's just like, can we get some level of consistency, please? So anyway, let me know what you guys think. The 3-point shooting, the over-reliance on it, some of the numbers here from the individual players. Is it just the injuries at the end of the day, and that's all? And this team would actually be some kind of threat if not for the injuries. Again, I still think there's some offensive issues there, even without the injuries. But I do also appreciate that I think this team could have actually been pretty good if not for the Jimmy Butler torn ACL and now this Steph Curry runner's knee. We'll wait and see what happens tomorrow. Obviously, the Warriors they're going to keep on fighting. Steve Kerr said, "We ain't tanking by any means. We ain't going out there with anything else in mind than trying to win the game." They're going to have a more of a chance, obviously, tomorrow against the Pistons without Cade Cunningham. And then we'll wait and see what happens moving forward. We could potentially see Steph back in the next week or so. I know that March 25 game against the Nets has been kind of circled. I don't know. It feels like this has been going on forever now. It feels like Steph just gets reevaluated every 10 days, and that's essentially just what happens. But I don't know. Fingers crossed. I want to see, like, I'm a basketball fan, I'm a Warrior fan. I want to see Steph Curry on the floor as much as possible before his career is out. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at Pop252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Golden State with Mates on the Patreon, TikTok, and Instagram as well. And I'll see you next time.